I've been working on a very special series of what I call special numbers, anointed harmonic numbers. And this has been a journey for me over the last 4 decades, 40 years. I've been putting together information on sacred geometry, and as I work with my notes and files, I put them into special folders like number 10, 11, 9, constants like the Euler constant. So I have a collection of these folders which would fill up this whole wall. It's basically a dictionary of harmonic numbers, so I'm very excited to be extracting from that some of the most important things that I'm working on. And sometimes these folders, they start bursting and I think, oh, the number 108 is a very important number. So we've already done whole books on 108, but today I want to introduce a series on the harmonic number 432. So 432 hertz is the Pythagorean tuning from ancient times, and it got mixed up today with the equal temperament called 440. And we're going to be talking about this harmonic number 432 and how we had to detune for A as 440 hertz down to 432. That's a detuning process, and why we're doing it is a fundamental understanding of sacred geometry. But to understand that, I need to begin with the number 144, because 144 is intimately paired with the harmonics of 432. So straight away you can see that 144 times 3 is 432. And the reason why 432 is sacred is because when we square that number, 432 squared, if you get your calculator, it's 186,624 miles per second, which means 432 is connected to the sun code, the light harmonic. But we're going to begin with 144, and you'll see the stepping stones of how they're all connected. So I'll just put these down over here. And I'd like to start off with showing you what I have here is I live in a beautiful rainforest property. This is going to be my pointer, by the way, so we can point at individual notes. But when we walk the land in ancient times, they carried these dowsing rods, and you can see that one's moving now. And when one's starting to move like that, without me even forcing anything, it means we're in a vortex. But when you're dowsing on the land, they're parallel. When they cross, that means there's water underneath. Whoa! So these are really special. These are tuned, highly tuned instruments. So I'm going to be using one of these just to begin with. So you can see here that we have a circle. We have a full circle, which is based on 360 degrees. But 360 is broken up into 10 compartments. And the reason why I'm doing 10 lots of 36 is because 36 is the beginning of a harmonic series. It's 6 squared, but when we take our protractor here, so for me to construct this decagon, there's my circle here, there's the center, and you can see here that I can turn this around, there's 0. So I've marked every 36, 72, all the way around. So the protractor is the symbol of the unity of the circle. So let's just learn this sequence, because this is critical to understanding what I'm going to say. If we keep doubling 36, we go to 72, 108, 144, 180, 216, 252, 288, which is double 144, 324, and then back to 360. So this full circle is about what we call unity consciousness. So what I'm going to do is this number 144 is so encoded with high level information that I'm just going to go through each one separately. So let's start off with the sunflower. When we look at a sunflower, we know that when we study a sunflower, we have 21 spirals going one way and 34 the other way, and that ratio, 21 to 34, is called the golden ratio. So the golden ratio is critical to all this work. Now what's happened is that they found some sunflowers, giant sunflowers in Russia, where they had 89 spirals going one way and then the other way 144. So this number 144 is based on the living mathematics of nature. So I really believe at this point that if we had a proto-language where A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, we call that Gematria. Gematria is the Greek word for geometry. So if we could turn language into numerics, we end up with certain frequencies. So the frequency for light, the gematria for light, would be 144. Now we can take this 144 and put it on what's called a Pythagorean triangle. So we all know the 3, 4, 5 triangle, 3, 4, 5. Now we can multiply each side of that triangle by 36. We see how we start off with 36 degrees. But when we increase the Pythagorean triangle, we get some more sacred numbers. So I'll just show it to you here. So 3 squared is 9, plus 4 squared is 16. We could pick up these 9 and 16 tiles, which makes 25, and it happens to be the hypotenuse. And this is the second most important mathematical code in the universe besides the golden ratio. So we call it the Pythagorean right angle triangle because it only works if there's a 90 degree. It has been discovered by Sumerians and the Indian cultures, but I just want you to take a mental photograph of this because without this we can't crack the codes of the universe. So what I'm going to do is we multiply 3 by 36, we get 108, and the 4 by 36 we get 144, and then by Pythagoras' theorem, 108 squared, the square on that side plus the square on that side gives us the square on that. So it works out that that's 108, 144, and 180. And this is really important because this is this is a clue to what they call the Earth grid. When Bruce Cathie did his work on harmonics of the Leylines, he gave us the Leylines around the planet. This was the key signature code that allowed us to see where the symmetry was, where sacred sites and temples were built. Now what's interesting is that when we add up when we convert the circle, the 360 degrees, because 180, double that is 360, we get a 360 triangle as well. If we multiply that 360 by 60 minutes, we end up with 2,160 minutes. So 2,160, we drop the 0 and we get harmonic 216, which is over here. So 216 is 6 cubed. So this is all cubic information because the cube stores the memory. And also, if we looked at the number of hours, if we converted the number of hours in 144 hours, how many minutes are there? We have to multiply that by 60. So 144 times 60 gives 10,080 minutes. And in harmonics, we're allowed to drop the zeros. So the 10,080 minutes is 108. And 108 is is this angle over here, 108 degree. And the reason why we love the 108 degrees is because when we examine the internal geometry of the pentagon, the 5-pointed star, you can see here that the internal, the angle here between two sides is 108. It's 54 and 54. But what's interesting is that if we go from the center, we know that the inner angles here at the center would be 5 into 360 is 72 degrees. So when we look at 72 degrees and double it, we get this shaded bit here. So inside the pentagon, we have the 144 degree angle. Now the reason why that's important is because 144, according to Bruce Cathie, is the number of minutes of arc per grid second. So 144,000 minutes of arc per grid second is the established speed of light. And we're allowed to drop the 3 zeros. So 144,000 speed of light is harmonic 144. So you can see that the pentagon is the shape of everything in the universe. It's the shape of every protein in our body. And it's fractal because the pentagon keeps reducing at 0.618, 0.618, 0.618 forever. It's an infinitely geometric series that cascades from the atom to the galaxy. And that's why I've put the sun there. So the 5-pointed star contains the coding of 144. So I thought that's important to mention that. And also there was a character called Penrose Tiles, Professor Penrose, who was a physicist like Einstein, and he solved a problem where they said that you can't tile a surface with pentagons because you can take like triangles and squares and they tile the plane, there's no gaps. But he decided to cut this pentagon into that, see the shape that I've shaded here? That's the 144 degree angle. So he took that shape, which is like a diamond, and he was able to map the plane, and from that he discovered quasi-metals. This led to new theories in whole atomic structure because of that 144 degree angle. So if you study Penrose tiles, this rhomboid or rhombi, it's called aperiodic tiling, but it's the key to the future sciences. And I love it when great thinkers, they contradict the established science, because we're using the keys to sacred geometry to look for the truth, the eternal truth. Another interesting thing is that when we look at magic cubes, so I'll just show you a magic square first. So if we look at a magic square, we know that all the columns and the rows of this 4x4 add up to the same number, 34, 34 diagonals, the 4 center numbers, the corners. But in space, we can take this 4x4 and make it 4 times 4 times 4, which is called 4 cubed. And in space, this would all add up to 1, 2, 3. But if we decided to do the 6x6, so if I took a 6x6 square, then gave it depth, I would have 6 times 6 times 6, which is 216. Again, that's one of the angles of the Decagon, 216. So what would all the columns and rows add up to? So if this was a 6x6, the columns, the rows, the ranks and the files, even the 6 going this way and that way and that way and this way, they all add up to 651. So we call that a constant. So the magic square constant is 651, but how many different ways can we make it add up to 651? The answer is, mathematicians worked out, there's 144 ways that we can make the magic cube of 6x6. So here's a cube, this is a 3x3, but for 6x6 there's 144 options. Now that's kind of a bit of data and it may not mean anything now, but these are the keys to perhaps future researchers. By giving this information, we're letting others know that these numbers ring a bell, that 144 is the key. And then you look for more information, like in the Bible, here we have the New Jerusalem. So in the New Jerusalem, they gave very specific instructions how King Solomon was going to build his temple. And just in a nutshell, without going into all the details, it was all based on 144 cubits. And then you need to know how much is a cubit and how long was this side here. So this cube of New Jerusalem almost filled up the whole earth. It was like a celestial city, but in a cubic form, and it was built out of crystals. And the length here was 12,000 furlongs. And we've forgotten how much a furlong is, but 1 furlong is about 1,500 miles. So if this is 12,000 furlongs, this cube is almost surrounding the earth. So this was a celestial city in our Bible 2,000 years ago in St. John's, and it was all based on the number 144. So fundamentally, the basis of 144 hertz, it forms a harmonic series. So if we start with 144 hertz, we call n is 1. That's the fundamental there. That's the vibrating string. But if we go n equals 2, we double 144, we get 288, which is the second harmonic. And then the third harmonic, we have 3 nodes, it's 432, because 3 lots of 144 gives us 432 hertz. And then you can see here, you keep adding 144, you get 576 for the 4th harmonic, 5th and 6th, and we get up to 864, which relates to the diameter of the sun, 864,000 miles. So these are frequencies that are imbued with the light harmonics. And the reason why we're talking about 432 following this is that the equal temperament system has been debatable, because we believe that a lot of the famous musicians like Jimi Hendrix, John Lennon, Prince, all these rock musicians that we know, they tuned their instruments to 432 because it's based on triple 144. But this equal temperament system where they designed A is 400, the note A was 440 hertz. We decided to bring it down to 432 because 432 is triple 144, and that's the ancient Pythagorean note for D. So when we bring 440 hertz down to 432, we're in resonance with the universe. So that's a really important debate that's going on in the world of music and the universal concert pitch that they talk about. Another interesting thing about 144 is that my mentor Bruce Cathie, but also Buckminster Fuller, said that the fundamental form was the tetrahedron, is that this is the most stable form. And what's interesting is that he divided this shape into 24. So if we keep dividing at midpoints and through the center, and we keep subdividing this, we end up with 24 parts. He called it quanta. So these quanta are the 24 little prisms that are inside this that you can't see. And what's important is that this shape here, the rhombic dodeca, has 144 of these small tetrahedral quanta. So this shape here, called the rhombic dodeca, has 12 diamonds, but inside of that it has 144 components. Now this is the atomic structure of what we call garnet crystal. I have some garnet here. So when we look at garnet crystal, this is the rough form of garnet crystal, which you can just see some diamonds, but when you polish it up, you can start seeing some really distinct diamond forms. So this is crystalline geometry expressing itself in the 144. And where this shape comes from is that this rhombic dodeca of 12 diamonds is what exists inside the cube octa. So this is the vector equilibrium that Bucky talked about, and it's all based on 12 radials. It's harmonically balanced. It's the most balanced shape in the universe. So this is what apophyllite crystal looks like. Apophyllite has triangles and squares. So it's interesting that as we talk about shapes and numbers, we are coming back all the time to harmonic numbers like 144. And it's interesting that when we look at the Indian knowledge of the Vedic way of time, they called time kala. So the word for time was called kala. Now that's in the Sanskrit word, and our word for calculate, when we say I want to calculate, the beginning of calculate is kal. So kal comes from the word for time, but the Indians, they expressed one kala as 144 seconds. So this is really interesting that 5,000 years ago, the priests from this ancient continent were talking about time must have 144 seconds or minute parts to it. And how they derived that, we're not sure, but that's interesting research. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just putting all this together. So let's go to another culture. Let's look at the flower of life. This is in every culture. What you're seeing here is the seed of life, where the circle, where the radius is unchanged, and it walks around the circumference 6 times. Remember, 36 degrees is 6 squared. We're coming back to the number 6. Now, if we were to call this a 3-frequency flower of life, let's look at the flower of life, because this is the number 1 shape in the mass consciousness. The whole world is wearing this jewelry, and what you're really looking at is a cube. We're going back to the fundamental cube, the New Jerusalem magic cubes. This is a lot of information about crystalline structures and cube. So if we were to count all these parts, let's have a look at it. I'll pick this one up here. Here's the typical flower of life, which is done as a coaster from Indonesia. These are bamboo where they've threaded it, but I just find these really beautiful. So you can see the 6, and there's another 12 and 18. But if you were to count all the petals, these things that I'm touching, there's 90 petals. But in between the petals is these curved triangles. We'll call it the negative space. If you counted all the curved triangles, there's 54. So in terms of components or parts, the flower of life has 90 petals and 54. The sum of 90 and 54 is 144. So I find that amazing, because this is the number 1 geometry in the world today. And I'm embarrassed to show you a very old one that I've had for about 20 years, about 40 years when I went to Bali. But this one here, if you count the edges, is 1, 2, 3. That's 3 frequency. But if you count these edges here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 5 frequency flower of life. It's very old, but we adore it because it's in the golden ratio. If you examine all the circular geometry, it's in the 0.618 ratio. So it means it's the mathematics of beauty. But I just love how that the 3 frequency one rings that bell of 144 again. So I've put that there to show you. We can take this number 144. So if I had my calculator here and I said 1 divided by 144. That means we're going from the macro large right down into the microcosm. And when we express the micro value, the reciprocal of 144 is 0.0069444. So Bruce Cathie, who gave us the Leylines, he said we're allowed to move the decimal points on. We're going to drop the zero, so now we've got 69444. He rounded. You could round it off to 695 because he wrote a book called Harmonic 695. But if we move this decimal up to here and call it 6.94, the reason why that number is important is because Tesla, our hero Tesla, he built an antenna. He built a car with an antenna that was 6.94 feet. So 6.94 is the harmonic of light, because there's 144,000 minutes of arc per grid second, and the speed of light is 144,000 nautical miles per second. Now, so Tesla knew these fundamental harmonics of 144 because he built an aerial that was precisely 6.94 feet. And if it wasn't precise, that it wouldn't operate. So he could run free energy. He had the first free energy car, but as you know, a lot of his work got shut down. He invented radio, TV, lasers, the remote on the TV, and X-rays. He invented so much stuff, but he was a great mathematician, and he knew the reciprocal of light has a lot to do with what we call gravity. Because light is one thing, but when you take the reciprocal, we're looking at the opposite of light. It's called the matter constant. So this is another whole deep area of inquiry. So I just wanted to mention that. So far we've covered half this information, so there's still more to come. What I really love about the number 144 is that there is this thing called Gematria. Now Gematria we've got the Greek language, and we've also got the ancient Semitic. If we look at the Greek name for God, it's called Theos. So that means like A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. But in the Greek, the TH is the value 9, the E was a 5, the O had a value of 70, and the S was 60. So if you added up the name for God in the ancient Greek, it was 144. Now this is all questionable because we're not using the ancient Greek system, but just letting you know that the ancient people had an alphanumeric. Alphanumeric means letters become numbers. Left brain joins with right brain. We don't have an alphanumeric system. The Sanskrit language does, where A is 1, B is 2. But if we go back into ancient Judea, before the time of Christ, we had the Semites, and the name for Abraham came from Abram, and in India that was Brahma. So the name for Brahma, the god of creation, in the Semitic language, ancient Babylon, was Abram. Again, if you added it up in their language, it was 1 plus 2 plus 100 plus 1 plus 4, and it was 144. I think one of them should have been a 40, sorry, the 40. The M is 40 there. So this is a subject called Gematria. As I said, it means geometry. So another interesting thing, these ancient cultures all worked with things called magic squares. Now, my work from 40 years ago was always working with the most simplest forms of magic squares. So to look at a magic square, here's a magic square of 3 by 3. So this pattern here comes from these 9 numbers. So by knowing those 9 numbers, and I start from 1, 2, 3, 4 in order, there's a certain pathway. If I follow this pathway, but instead of starting from 1, I start from 44, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4. If I draw this magic square starting from 44, I go 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. If I add up all those columns now, the 3 columns add up to 144, the 3 rows and the 2 diagonals, it rings a harmonic bell of 144. Now the reason why and I can make any magic square, what I'm good at is that, because I've studied this for a long time, if you were obsessed about the number 432 or 1008, whatever, I could make any magic square add up to that desired number. But if you add up all those numbers from 44 plus 45 all the way to 52, all those 9 numbers add up to 432. So numerically I found a connection, which is the beginning of our inquiry, is what's the connection between 144 and 432? Well, here's a magic square that does that. So that could become a future circuit. We don't know. That might have musical power in some way. And as you can see here, the reason why I drew a decagon, see this circle? We did this big circle and we divided it into 10, but can you see that this angle here, the 10 angles are all 144 degrees? I forgot to tell you that. This is probably, that was the beginning point of constructing this information, was let's create a 10-pointed star. 10-pointed star. So here's a 10-pointed star. So it looks like a, so this 10-pointed star looks like a slice of a pizza. If you pulled that 1/10 slice out, we end up with a golden triangle, and that golden triangle, so this golden triangle is 72 and 72, that's 144 degrees, but this golden triangle is in the golden ratio, and it creates the 144 degree angle. Part 3, I just wanted to recap that in part 2 we were looking at the importance of the decagon, but when it's made as a star it's called a decagram. The reason why we divided the circle into 10 parts is that when we have external angles of 144 degrees, which is what all these angles are of the decagon, it allows this slice, this 1/10 slice here, which is shown over here, this 144 degree angle, which is this one here, allows the golden ratio to appear, because if this is 1, this is 1.618. This could not happen if we did not have the 144 degree angles. So that's a really important realization. So if you're going to build a temple or a balcony, you would want to build a 10-sided foundation, because all these 10 slices, these pizza-like slices, are in the golden ratio. Now, perhaps the most important thing about the 144 is that 144 is intimately connected to the code called 369. 369. There's an infinite code that Tesla said, to understand the keys to the universe, we need to understand 369. So I'm going to show you how, when we add up all these, I'm going to show you how I derived 369 here, but all this inner ring of 369 adds up to 144. So how did I do that? We divide the circle into 24. So this is called the wheel of 24. So you can look at this ring, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way. As I get to 9, instead of putting 10, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I start at 1. So I'm just using the digits 1 to 9, but there's 24 digits. And then as I go to the next number, 25, I jump the ring. I go 25, which is a 7, 25, 26 is an 8. So I keep going from 1 to 9 in the second ring, and then I jump to the third ring here, which is over here, and you just keep going 1 to 9. So really, I've got the numbers from 1 to 3 lots of 24, 72. 72 is that angle of the golden triangle. 72 is the 36, 72. So it's interesting, we've got 72 numbers. Now if I kept doing this, all this information here is going to repeat every 3 rings. Every time I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in order. These 3 rings will keep repeating. So we need to add up all these digits. If I add up, what you can see here, these are the solfeggio scale. So if I look at every triplet, it goes 1, 7, 4. Then it goes 2, 8, 5, 3, 9, 6. Now those combinations keep repeating all the way around. So if I was to add up 1 plus 7 plus 4, that adds up to 12, that adds up to 15, and that adds up to 18. So all the way around it adds up to 12, 15, 18, 12, 15, 18, 12, 15, 18. That sum of 2-digit numbers, 12 plus 15 plus 18, is 45. But because it's 3 goes into 24 8 times, 3 8s are 24, so 45 lots of 8 gives us 360. So the sum of all these numbers here is the 360, which is the harmonics of the circle, which is what we started off. We divided the 360 here into 10 to give us the 144. So here everything adds up to the natural sequence of counting numbers from 1 to infinity. When we look at them in rings of 3, they all add up to 360. Now we add up each one of these. So we add up each one of these solfeggio triplets. 1 plus 7 plus 4, as you know, is 12, but we added up, it's a 3. 2 plus 8 plus 5, we worked out was 15, adds up to 6. And then the 396 adds up to 18, which is a 9. Now see that information 369, it keeps repeating. So as we keep adding every triplet or solfeggio triplet, it goes 369, 369, 369. So 369, 3 plus 6 plus 9 is 18, and there's 8 lots of these sections. So 8 lots of 18 is 144. So I really love this. This is the wheel of 24. This is all the natural sequence of counting numbers expressing itself in a trinity, yet when we reduce it through continued subtraction of 9 called digital roots, digital compression or digit sums, we essentially are coming back to the 369 code. So this is what Tesla was telling us, to look at what repeats, because repeatability gives us access to understanding the infinite nature of things. What I'm also interested too is, I'm looking at, when we look at DNA's got a lot to do with the hexagon joining the pentagon, and the symbolic numerical nature of pentahexa, which is DNA, is 6 and 5. But if we square both numbers, we've got 6 squared and 5 squared. If we divide one into the other, if I divide 25 into 36, what number do you think you'd get? So we get 1.44 exactly. So this thing between two squared numbers, 36 and 25, which is essentially DNA molecule, pentahexa, rings that bell at 1.44. But harmonic maths means I can move the decimal to the right as much as I want. So 1.44 is harmonic 144. And just playing with the number 144, this is just called number theory. If you take 12 squared, we know 12 squared is 144. But if I decide to reverse this is called cosmic mirroring. If I reverse everything that you see there, let's reverse 144 is 441. But 441 is actually 21 squared, which is the 12 mirrored. So 12 reversed is 21. So I love collecting information where they're called palindromic. Palindrome is a Greek word means run backwards. So when we reverse things, we find that there's a connection between 144 and 12 squared, 21 squared. There's a lot of this information, but I just wanted to put that down. There's some beautiful shapes also that we're talking about 144 degrees here. In 3 dimensions, is there a shape where the external planes of a certain shape, I'll pick one up here. So we have this shape here. This is a magnetic toy, but this shape here is made up of 30 diamonds. But the angle between two planes, so that angle, there's that plane going that way, a plane going that way. The angle between them is called a dihedral angle, because di means 2. So the dihedral angle of this earth grid shape is 144. So this has always been one of my favorite shapes. So it's called the rhombic triacontohedron, and it's formed from the icosahedron. We could do a whole lesson just on that, but 144 is critically involved with this grid angle. We know that in ancient India, I've got a foot here that's winged. Most of you know the winged foot is the symbol of Mercury, or the Hermes, the messenger of the gods. So we're talking about flight. Now what's important is that the element of Mercury, which is related to Hermes, or the god Mercury, it has a specific gravity of 14.4. So 14.4 means if we slide the decimal, it's related to 144. And when you study the ancient cosmology, they talk about Vimana craft. The Vimana were the spacecrafts, and when they found some certain crafts that had crashed and they did the reverse engineering, they found that the propulsion system that could allow a craft to go at the speed of light was based on Mercury propulsion, and we know that Mercury has that specific gravity of 14.4. So this was interesting connection, whether or not we believe in crafts that fly at the speed of light and ancient Indian UFO crafts, that's up to you. But again, in that culture in ancient India, when someone reached enlightenment, they looked at the crown, and they would say that the crown chakra had 144,000 petals, which means they were in the realm of light or higher consciousness. what's important too is when we look at the Fibonacci sequence, which is pretty much involved with the pentagon having the 108 degree angle on the out here, but internally there's the 144. We know that the 12th Fibonacci number is 144. It's the only number in the whole sequence that is a square of itself. So if we go 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, the 12th number is 144. So that's really interesting. Like I said, it's the only number that does that. So what that means is that when we divide 144 by the golden ratio, so 144 divided by 1.618 gives us 89. That's the sunflower. And then if we divide 89 again by 1.618, we get 55. These are all the Fibonacci numbers. Keep dividing every Fibonacci number by 1.618, you get 34, 21. So I really love that. And just to conclude, I can talk all day on this, but I just want to conclude on one more thing, that there was this Bactrian coin, 120 in the year 120 BC, there was this amazing king called King Azes. Now King Azes, before the birth of Christ, they had some coins, and I'm going to point to it here, it's very small, but see this rectangle here, on this coin, which had cryptic writing around it, was a rectangle. Now here's that rectangle. I've blown up the rectangle, and it's 3 gold Pythagorean triangles. So let's look at the Pythagorean triangle again. So I'm going to take this 3, 4, 5 triangle and multiply each side by 3, then 4, then 5. So imagine 3 similar right angled triangles, and so here's the first one here. So this right angled triangle is got sides of 9, 12 and 15. So I've multiplied this right angled triangle here by 3. So that gives 12, 9, 12 and 15. Add those numbers up, it's 36. Then the next one adds up to 48, and the next golden right angle triangle having sides 15, 20 and 25 adds up to 60. So when we add up all these sides, we got 36 plus 48 plus 60 gave us the sum of 144. So the reason why this rectangle, it's a 3 by 4 rectangle, the 3 by 4 rectangle has a lot to do with the priests. The ancient Jewish priests at the time of Christ wore these breastplates based on the 3 to 4 ratio, because the 3 to 4 ratio gave us the 12 compartments. 3 4s are 12, and that they put certain crystals on their heart chakra, which means that only a priest of the highest order and integrity could wear the breastplate, because if you could not tell a lie. This was a lie detector, so only the priest could wear this sacred knowledge. And I just wanted to say that it's quite amazing that when we analyze the mathematics of the Jewish breastplate and worn on the heart chakra, that it was a highly mathematical system. Even when you multiply 36, 48 and 60, they add up to 103,680, which is 4 lots of the time it takes for our sun to go around another greater sun, which is a 25,920 year cycle. So all this information was about the high level of astronomy. So we just wanted to give tribute to our all cultures who've shared and held this knowledge, and to the value of libraries and researchers and the mathematicians of today who can share their wisdom and keep alive the magical tributes of 144, which has got to do with the speed of light. Hope you enjoyed this series, and there's more to come.